Welcome to the Knowing Me podcast. I'm Joanne, and I love to help people rewrite their lives' narratives by revisiting their past and reshaping their today. I really like the story of Abraham. There are so many things that we can learn from his life that are so applicable to us today in our growth and in our relationship with God. Let's just go to chapter 12 of Genesis just to follow the story along. Most of us know the story, but maybe you haven't seen it from this perspective. Anyways, reading in chapter 12, verse 1, the Lord said to Abram, "Leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family, and go to the land that I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt. All the families of the earth will be blessed through you." So Abram departed as the Lord had instructed, and Lot went with him. Most of us know this story. We know that he traveled into the area of Moreh, and at this time it was inhabited by the Canaanites. But while he was there, when he set up camp there, the Lord appeared to Abram and he said, "I will give this land to your descendants." And it just struck me as funny that in verses 1, 2, and 3 of chapter 12, he says, "It's for you and your descendants. I will make you. I will bless you." And then in verse 7, he says, "I will give this land to your descendants." And I began to think about that and ask God why. Why did the promise change? Why is it including Abram here and then later isn't including? Well, let's just get a little further with the story. He builds an altar, he dedicates it to the Lord. At that time, there was a severe famine in the land of Canaan, and it forced Abram to go down to Egypt. And when he was there, he had his wife lie and say she was his sister. And so Pharaoh went in and took her for his wife and was preparing her for this. And it always makes me smile because she was about 65 years old or older than this then. And she must have really been a beautiful woman for an Egyptian Pharaoh to look at her and say, "I want this woman who's 65 years old." I'm just a few years older than that. And my goodness, my youthful looks left a long time ago. But Pharaoh wants her, but because she's Abram's wife, the Lord sent terrible plagues on Pharaoh and his household because of this. And so we have here God talking to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh goes to Abram and he says, "How could you do this to me? You know she's your wife. How could you hurt my house or cause pain to be in my house because of your lie?" And Pharaoh orders him out of Egypt. So in chapter 13, he's leaving Egypt and traveling north into the Negev along with his wife and Lot and all that they owned. Now we know the story, and we know that Abram's shepherds started to fight with Lot's shepherds over the land, over what would be food for their sheep. And so Abram finally opens his eyes up and he says, it's not good for us to be together. It's causing tension and derision. And so why don't you pick the place that you want to be? If you go left, I'll go right. If you go north, I'll go south. You elect where you want to go. And we all know that Lot chose Sodom and Gomorrah. But that's not the thing that I'd like us to focus on. I'd like us to go down to verse 14 of chapter 13. Because here we see something amazing. Remember at the beginning of chapter 12? God promises that he will do many things through him, and he will bless Abram. And then in verse 7 of chapter 12, he says, "This is for your descendants." But now in chapter 13, verse 14, it says, "After Lot had gone, the Lord said to Abram, 'Look as far as you can see in every direction, north and south and east and west. I am giving all this land as far as you can see to you and your descendants as a permanent possession. And I will give you so many descendants that like the dust of the earth they cannot be counted. Go and walk the land in the direction, for I am giving it to you.'" And I started to ask myself, what is the difference between 12:7, where he's just going to give it to his descendants, and 13:14? And the only thing I can see is that Lot and he separated. Remember at the beginning of chapter 12, verses 1, 2, and 3, he says, "Leave your family, leave your parents, leave your relationships." And verse 4 says, "And Lot went with him." Now, what's wrong with the nephew? Nothing, unless God has told you to leave them all behind. And the contention that was between the shepherds of Lot and Abram wouldn't have happened if Lot hadn't been there. And we realize that there's a lot of things in my life or your life that maybe hinder our relationship with God. Because when you think about it, God asked Abraham to do something specific. He did it. He left his culture. He left his language. He left his country. He left his family. He left maybe a lot of his wealth that he had there. He left all of these things to follow God. And we can say that basically, except for taking Lot, he obeyed 95%. But was God focused on the 95% or was he focused on the 5? And it seems in this passage that he was focused on the 5%. He wasn't applauding Abraham's 95% obedience. He was saying, there's still this area where you haven't obeyed me. There's still this area where you haven't submitted to my authority over your life or my desire over your life. We see this here. And my question for me and for you is, what lot have you brought into your walk with God? What is there in yours and my life that is hindering our obedience, that is slowing us down in this journey to be becoming like Jesus Christ? Maybe that's a question we have to ask ourselves and ask God. Maybe we're obeying 95% of the time, but God is asking us, leading us into purity. And purity is being worthy of all He's done for us, is to continue to walk towards that goal of being like Christ. And if there's something like a lot in your life, maybe it's time that you and I go to God with that we say, I did wrong, and we separate ourselves from that thing in us that holds us back from God. And in separating ourselves from that, we open the door for God to speak to us, for God to guide us, for God to take a hold of us in the way that He's always wanted to. So I would challenge you to look at your life today as I'm looking at mine and asking God, what is it that you need to change in me? What is it that I haven't completely obeyed with what you've asked me? I ask you to forgive me. And I give you this lot that I've brought in here. I separate myself from it, and I come to you asking you to glorify your name in my life today and every day. I hope that God guides each one of us in this process of becoming like Jesus. And then at the end of the day, He will look at us and say, look out and see. This is what I'm offering you. This is what is yours. Walk it, take it, enjoy it, all for my glory and all for your good. I hope you have a great day, and we will see you next time.